Really, baby. How y'all doing? All right. Strawberry applesauce and socket tummy cake. Push that like button. Mm-mm-mm. How you doing, Shatika? How's life treating you? You blessed? Good today? You said something about me, Snag. You said something about me. Y'all doing all right? Who's playing bowl? Well, the Mexicans had a big protest during the Super Bowl, so they wasn't studying the damn Super Bowl. They protested. You said the Raiders. I like the Raiders. I like the Raiders logo. I like the Raiders team. The logo. I don't know none of the players. I don't know who play on the Raiders. Don't give a fuck about who play on the Raiders. I don't watch football. I don't watch sports. That's eugenics. That's public eugenics. People that is not intelligence. Raiders. Protest at Super Bowl today. was a protest. The Mexicans was protesting. Donald Trump was at the Super Bowl. Donald Trump was at the Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar sung a bunch of songs don't nobody give a fuck about at the Super Bowl. A bunch of damn songs nobody gave a fuck about. In New Orleans, people did not listen. They only, if they listen to one song he ever had, that was, they not like us. But the radio been promoting that young dude, man. That bullshit. Squabble, squabble, squabble. Somebody, what the fuck? Man, that dumbass shit. Y'all, how y'all doing? Push that like button. Squabble, squabble, squabble. I shoot. I don't squabble. I shoot. Fuck that shit. How y'all doing? Push that like button. You don't like me? I ain't even got started yet. Just came on. Waiting on the audience to come in. I've been bored as hell. I did 2 haircuts all day. 2 haircuts. Damn. On the Super Bowl Sunday, I only did 2 haircuts. Oh man. Push that like button. So today I've been wrapped. My mind been just trapped on working on my homeless shelter, building an off-grid homestead. That like button. I don't watch sports. I just watch the news. How y'all doing? Push that like button. Keep slowing down. Maybe Wi-Fi. No, it's not Wi-Fi. It's mine, bro. How y'all doing? Push that like button.
In my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
Make it easy.
Have you ever wondered if it's possible to power your home for free without relying on the traditional power grid? Well, get ready to have your mind blown. In this video, we're going to explore the groundbreaking work of Howard Johnson, a pioneering inventor who created not one, but 3 remarkable free electricity generators.
Magnetism was caused by the movement of an electron, right? And I said, well, if that's true, there's some important things we should be able to do with it.
Howard Johnson was an American engineer and inventor who dedicated his life to unlocking the secrets of free energy. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Johnson was determined to develop practical, commercially viable solutions that could liberate people from the constraints of the traditional power system. Johnson's journey towards free energy began at a young age as he became fascinated by the mysteries of magnetism and the untapped potential of renewable power sources. His early experiments and prototypes laid the foundation for the incredible innovations that would later capture the attention of the world. Johnson's first free electricity generator was a remarkable device known as the magnetic rotor. This ingenious machine harnessed the power of strategically placed magnets to generate an endless supply of electricity without the need for any external fuel source. The way it worked was truly revolutionary. The magnetic rotor consisted of a series of powerful permanent magnets arranged in a specific pattern around a central axis. As the rotor spun, the magnets would interact with each other, inducing an electric current that could be captured and used to power various electrical devices. The beauty of the system was that it required no input of energy to keep the rotor spinning. The magnets provided the necessary force to maintain the rotation indefinitely. Johnson's magnetic rotor generator was capable of producing a significant amount of electricity, enough to power an entire household in some. Estimates suggest that a single magnetic rotor unit could generate between 5 to 10 kilowatts of continuous power, making it a viable alternative to traditional power sources. Determined to push the boundaries of free energy even further, Johnson went on to develop a second generator known as the permanent magnet motor. This innovative device took the principles of the magnet motor and applied them in a different configuration, creating a self-sustaining motor that could generate electricity without any external input. The permanent magnet motor consisted of a series of strategically placed permanent magnets arranged around a central shaft. As the shaft rotated, the magnets would interact with each other, creating a magnetic field that would induce an electric current. This current could then be captured and used to power various electrical devices, all without the need for any external energy source. Johnson's permanent magnet motor was capable of producing even more electricity than the magnetic rotor, with estimates suggesting it could generate up to 20 kilowatts of continuous power. This made it an incredibly promising solution for powering homes, businesses, and even small communities off the grid. But Johnson's innovations didn't stop. He went on to develop a third and final free electricity generator known as the magnetic force generator. This device took the principles of the magnetic rotor and permanent magnet motor to an even higher level, creating a truly revolutionary free energy solution. The magnetic force generator was a complex and intricate device that utilized the precise arrangement of powerful permanent magnets to generate an endless supply of electricity. By carefully controlling the interaction between these magnets, Johnson was able to create a self-sustaining system that could produce an astounding amount of power without any external input. Johnson's magnetic force generator was capable of producing an incredible 50 kilowatts of continuous power, enough to power an entire neighborhood. This made it one of the most powerful free electricity generators ever conceived, and a true game changer in the world of renewable energy. As Johnson's free electricity generators grew in size and output, he faced new challenges in scaling up the production and deployment of these devices. Overcoming technical hurdles, sourcing materials, and ensuring reliable performance at an industrial scale were just a few of the obstacles he had to navigate. Despite the incredible potential of his free electricity generators, Johnson faced significant challenges in bringing his inventions to market. Powerful interests, threatened by the disruptive nature of his technology, worked tirelessly to suppress his work and prevent him from sharing his innovations with the world. Johnson fought long and hard to secure patents for his free electricity generators, but even proved to be an uphill battle. Powerful corporations and government entities put up numerous legal obstacles, making it nearly impossible for him to protect his intellectual property and bring his devices public. As Johnson's free electricity generators gained more attention and recognition, the forces working to suppress his work only intensified. He faced constant threats, intimidation, and even physical danger as he tried to raise awareness and secure funding for his revolutionary technologies. Sadly, the relentless pressure and obstacles eventually took their toll on Howard Johnson. Despite his unwavering determination and brilliant mind to overcome the formidable forces arrayed against him, his untimely death left the world without the transformative impact of his free electricity generators. But the legacy of Howard Johnson's work lives on, inspiring a new generation of innovators and entrepreneurs to pick up where he left off. Today, there is a growing movement to revive and further develop his free electricity technologies, with the goal of finally realizing his dream of powering the world for free. The significance of Johnson's work cannot be overstated. Free energy has the potential to revolutionize the way we power our homes, businesses, and communities, freeing us from the constraints of the traditional power grid and the ever-increasing costs of energy. It represents a path towards a more sustainable, equitable, and empowered future. As the world grapples with the pressing challenges of climate change and energy security, the demand for innovative, renewable energy solutions has never been greater. The continued development and refinement of free electricity technologies, inspired by the pioneering work of Howard Johnson, could be the key to unlocking a new era of energy independence and abundance. It's time for us to take a stand and reclaim the promise of free energy. By raising awareness, supporting research and development, and advocating for the widespread adoption of these transformative technologies, we can honor the legacy of Howard Johnson and pave the way for a brighter, more sustainable future. In conclusion, the story of Howard Johnson and his free electricity generators is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of progress. Though he faced countless obstacles, his vision and determination have inspired a new generation to continue the fight for energy independence and a better tomorrow. Let us heed his call and work together to make the dream of free electricity a reality.
This President's Day, feel the freedom to style your space with modular sectionals starting at $699.98 now at Ashley. Plus, pay over time with 0% interest for 60 months. Shop in store or online. Only at Ashley.
months ago, I really a video about Nikola Tesla's invention of the induction motor. If you haven't seen that video, if you watch that first, but it's not going to be required because I'm going to show you important. That video went live, I got a huge influx of emails and comments from people asking me about all these different free energy, which ones are real and fake. You know, did Nikola Tesla invent a device that was suppressed by the government? After reviewing a whole bunch of these videos, I've decided rather than going through them one by one and trying to tell you what works and what doesn't, I've decided to answer two really key questions. The first question is, why would somebody bother to make a fake video about free energy? And number two, how can I tell whether a device is real or not? And those are questions we want to answer today. There's a couple concepts about how motors work that I want to make sure we're on the same page on, and I've covered this in great detail in that Nikola Tesla video that I introduced. There's a 3-minute segment that's really important, so important in fact, I'm going to show it to you here again. Even if you've seen that video, I ask that you please watch this next 3 minutes to make sure we have exactly the same information in our heads before we go into the next part where I explain how to tell the difference between what works and what doesn't. When you run electricity through a wire, there's a magnetic field produced around the wire. In fact, that magnetic field has a north and a south pole. To demonstrate this, I'm going to use this compass that I have laying on my workbench here. North is directly behind me, and this wire currently is connected to a circuit that is off. If I turn the power on and apply some voltage, you'll see that the compass needle is starting to turn to align itself with the magnetic field of the wire. That's because that magnet is a whole lot closer than the Earth's magnetic field. When I turn the power off, it goes back to the Earth's magnetic field. It gets even better though. If you take the wire and coil it up all in the same direction, the strength of the magnetic field increases. And if you take a piece of iron and shove it in the middle, that also increases the magnetic field. To illustrate how this works, I've taken this transformer out of a microwave, literally just a few minutes ago. What's important to us is that it's a piece of iron with wire inside of it. The one on this side is wrapped way more than this side. So we're going to use this one. And if we put electricity through it, we ought to be able to turn this thing into a magnet. So right now, it's not magnetic, right? But we'll put power on it. And now let's start to run some current through it. Okay, that's definitely pulling on it now. And let's put a little more. Yeah. Okay. We have an electromagnet. So now we ought to be pretty comfortable with the idea that if we run electricity through a wire, we're going to get a magnetic field around the wire. And that magnetic field gets stronger if you coil the wire up. This also works in reverse. If we move a magnet over a wire, we get electricity. Let me show you. This is just a stack of ceramic magnets, and as you can see, as I move it closer to the coil, I'm starting to read a voltage on my multimeter. And that's because electricity is actually starting to flow through this top coil here. If I move it a little faster and a little closer, I actually get higher voltages, meaning that more electricity is flowing. But there's one more thing you want to know before we move away from this, is if the magnet is still, there's no voltage. There has to be relative motion between the magnet and the coil of wire. As long as I'm inputting some motion, I'm going to get a voltage there. Pop quiz. I hope you were paying attention because here we go. In the last clip, I said that the voltage reading indicated that electricity was flowing through the meter. But where is the power coming from? A, it's coming from the multimeter. B, it's coming from the magnet, obviously. C, it's coming from the atmosphere, obviously. D, it's coming from my waving hand, obviously. While you're thinking about that first question, I'm going to pose the second question. This is a question I get about once a month on my website, and it usually goes something like this. Why don't electric cars like the Tesla have an alternator? For those of you who don't know, the alternator in your car with the gas engine recharges the battery as you drive. So the gasoline engine is turning the alternator puts electricity into your batteries, and that allows you to start your car. The logic goes like this. If you have an electric car, you could connect an alternator to the motor, and then the output of the alternator goes to the batteries, and you have an infinite loop of energy. While you drive around, you charge up the batteries drive the car, and thus you never need to plug your car in. We're going to revisit this idea in just a little bit. Here on my workbench, I've got two permanent magnet DC motors. As you saw in the illustration before, electricity can produce magnetism, and magnetism can produce electricity. That works at the motor level as well. If you spin the shaft on a permanent magnet DC motor, it will behave like a generator. And I can prove that to you by simply plugging this motor into this motor. And just so you know, there's no trickery going on here. I'll try to keep all these cables up on the workbench. I literally have the input of this motor connected to the input of this motor. And if I spin the shaft, you can see that this motor is behaving like a generator, which is sending a small amount of electricity through these wires into this motor. And it's like this motor being plugged in, it causes the shaft to move. This works in the other direction as well, as you can see. This one can behave like a generator. This one can behave like a generator. But here's where things start to get interesting. Why can't I just connect this output to this output? And therefore, let's see here. Oh, convenient enough. I've got a rubber band in there. What happens if I do this? And I spin this motor. What should happen is I get electricity out of here, which runs into here, which makes that spin, which makes that spin, which gives me electricity, and I have an infinite loop, perpetual power right here on my workbench. Want to see what happens? There's one element that's missing. We need some way to get the system started, right? Like, it's obviously not doing anything now, but based on this should run forever. In the last video I watched on this topic, they actually wound the pulley of one of the motors, yanked it like they were cranking a lawnmower, and then that supposedly fired the system off, and it ran in the video. I'll give you some examples of how it's really easy to fake. That actually brings me to the first question I brought up, which is, why would somebody bother to set all this up and pretend to produce energy when they don't actually produce energy? In the video, they usually claim that it's some sort of government cover-up and that they are trying to share this secret device with the world. So here's the deal. Whenever there's an opportunity to make money, there's going to be scammers. They make these videos because people click on it out of curiosity. And that's all they need. It's like the ultimate scam. I don't have to convince you to give me money personally or give me your bank account information. I just need you to click on the thumbnail and watch for a little while, and I'll make money. It's beautiful. When you get to the end of the video, you don't have to believe a thing that you just saw. And this is actually why I'm not showing you any clips from those videos, because number one, if I explain to you how one guy did it, the next guy's just gonna fake it a little bit better. I'm gonna go watch it, which means they're gonna make money from my video. And I don't want those rascals to make anything off of me. So I'm just not gonna do it. Here's the problem with this, and also the problem with the call alternator example. If I pull, I've got a pretty terrible connection here.
Booking.com has all kinds of stays, for those who love family resorts, and for those who do not. There we go. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com, booking.yeah.
Meet 410 miles of range. Meet Rivian.
Okay, y'all, I heard Mael's Kalahari melon and aloe vera line is changing the game. Up to 5 days of moisture and no wash days in between. Let's see about that. Can you believe this is day 5?
Imagine what you could do with up to 5 days of moisture.
At Sprouts, our wide-open layout invites you in.
I know that off.
With healthy around every corner and tasty on every shelf. This is that Sprouts feeling.
Sorry, folks, there's a breaking development. There's something down on the field.
I see that too. What is that?
Looks like a koala or a dog or a...
They're all out there right now. They're trying to catch it. They're having a real hard time. They've got trash cans.
This guy's got no chance.
I think they got it.
Nope, now he's gone and driving a cart. Uh-oh, watch out for the door. Oh, that thing is indestructible.
They are indeed turning. Well, actually, let me make sure they're not fighting each other, because I don't want anybody to say, okay, yes. So the way the generators are set up now, they spin in the same direction, so it should be perpetual. All right, let's try that again. All right. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's really easy to prove to yourself that this doesn't work. All you need to test this is 2 little tiny hobby DC motors. Heck, you can get them out of your kids' broken toys. They're gonna have permanent magnet DC motors in them. Couple the 2 shafts together, connect the wires together, you will have exactly this setup. In fact, you will have a more efficient setup because connecting them with a belt is actually not the best way to transmit power. There's power loss in the belt. The belt's gonna be flopping around, heat is building up, friction is building up when the belt slips a tiny bit, and all of that is energy loss. This is why when I built my dynamometer, which was designed to carefully measure horsepower accurately at the shaft, I coupled the shafts directly together. I'm mostly just using a rubber band to poke fun at the idea that you could get power from a system like this. Whenever you design any mechanical system that uses belts or even gears, there's gonna be some power loss in that transmission. However it's set up, belts can slip a little bit, it's gonna be friction and heat, and all of that is some of the power leaking out of the system. You also can't get more power out of the system than you put back in. So even if the system was perfectly perpetual and 100% efficient, which is impossible, then this would be self-running, but you could not possibly plug something else into the system. Because if you bled off even a tiny bit of energy, the system should stop. Every regular motor on the market has some sort of inefficiency. In fact, most motors will tell you right on the label what the efficiency is. In fact, I'll put some labels on the screen here for you. And as you can see, there is an efficiency rating that tells you how much power is lost by running this motor. Now, just to be clear, if you have an efficiency of say 80%, that means that if your motor is drawing 100 watts from the wall, then only 80 watts of power is coming out at the shaft. 20% of that power is lost through heat, friction in the bearings, things like that. Electrical losses, there are lots of little places where some power is simply lost. So if we spin this shaft and only 80% of that comes out and goes back into this motor, and then this motor is also inefficient, so now only 80% of that 80% is coming back out, and then you've got some loss again. What will happen is within just one rotation, that cycle is done. You don't have enough power to keep the system running. You certainly couldn't plug something else in to the system. Another misconception that we see in some of these free energy videos is the idea that magnets can be used to do work on other magnets. Any video where you see a set of permanent magnets pushing on another set of permanent magnets perpetually, it is being faked. There is an external source supplying energy to the system. There has to be. And this is evident. All you have to do is play with magnets. When you try to push them together, there is a repelling force there, but you notice that when I stop pushing on it, right now I'm supplying the power. When I stop, the magnets stop. If I flip them over and line the poles, they snap together, but they always go to a steady state. The same thing will happen when you spin 2 sets of magnets near each other. They will lock together and go to a steady state. It doesn't matter how much energy you input at the beginning. Any extra energy is just from what you put in the system. Once the magnets are strong enough to overcome that input energy, it stops. So it's better to think of magnets as being more like a spring. I can use these magnets, and there's potential energy when I shove them together or force them together. That potential energy can be released the same way that potential energy can be released from a spring. Now, some physicist who's got their doctorate in magnetism is going to give me a hard time about this, but I think this is a pretty good analogy to say that potential energy is being stored when I squeeze these 2 together, and when you release it, you can get power from that. The original power source came from my hand. Even when one of these magnets is an electromagnet, in that case, the external power source is the power plant. It's not free energy. That energy is being produced somewhere, and it's not the atmosphere. It's from a measurable source that is exhaustible. So let's revisit this idea of putting a car alternator in an electric car. We just learned a few minutes ago that no generator is perfect. There'll always be some energy loss. That means that your car alternator is going to need to draw 100 watts of power to put out 80 watts of power into the battery, using our example from before. That doesn't account for any power that's being used to actually drive the car. That's a whole separate thing. Your electric motor is not only putting out enough power to drive the car, it's drawing enough additional power from the battery to also run the alternator. So we can just ignore the electric motor for a moment and just say that the alternator is running off of the battery. And what you end up with is the battery is losing 100 watts and getting 80 watts back. And you can see very quickly we've wasted a whole bunch of power. And this is why car manufacturers don't put them in cars, because you're literally just wasting extra power. There's no benefit to having it there. In one of these videos where they claim the power is coming from the magnets, they actually take apart the alternator. This particular version has been copied many times actually, but they take apart the alternator, cut out the wiring on the inside on the rotor, and then epoxy on neodymium magnets. First of all, you've just made a terrible generator. It's much less powerful now than it was a few minutes ago before you cut the wires out. Now that you've got permanent magnets on there, they're not distributed evenly enough. The rotor itself needs to be really well balanced in order to spin it at a high rate of speed. Machines can do this very easily, but in these videos, the guy is manually gluing on these magnets, which is just ridiculous. I think this is insane, and I don't think you could actually spin an alternator like that. In my opinion, when you see this later on in the video, they've just simply put a different alternator there and done the same wiring on the outside. But even if you manage to get it balanced enough that you don't shake your assembly to death, it certainly wouldn't produce more power than it takes to spin the thing up. That part is just ridiculous. What I want to talk about now is how you might fake something like this, because that's actually one of the things that I want you to, be paying attention to. In that one video that I was talking about with a ridiculous number of views, they took a power strip like this, connected an alternator to one end of the system, and then plugged the motor into the other end of the system. And supposedly the alternator was powering the power strip, and then the power strip was running the motor. The motor was connected to the alternator, and therefore you have a perpetual system. So I've got a power strip very similar to what's in that video. And let's tie this thing down so it doesn't move around on me while I'm plugging and unplugging things. All right, I need zip ties, 1 second. So the basic idea is you plug your motor into this, your alternator is connected here, so power coming in through your alternator will power the strip, and then the strip powers the motor. They're connected together. Okay, so here I have an extension cable. I'm gonna plug this in right here and plug that in the wall. Okay, and here we have our light bulb. But there's actually another option. You see, instead of plugging in a power tool or something else, which is what it looks like they're doing in many of these demonstration videos, we could plug something else in to this scenario. For example, okay, so I'm unplugged, right? But I can make an extension cord, which looks like this. Got 2 male ends on it. As you can see here, it's all the same cord. I'm gonna plug this in and try not to electrocute myself with the 2 wires sticking out. Yes, that is a hazard you should be cautious about, but when you're trying to make the big bucks on YouTube, you risk it. Okay, so plug this in. Oh, what do you know? That also works. So it took me less than a minute to make that extension cable. And if you have 3 or 4 things plugged into this, and the cables are running off into the background everywhere, like I've seen in many of these videos, there's no reason that one of those extension cords couldn't just be a double-ended extension cord that allows you to power your alternator or your electric motor in this case, which will make the whole system look like it's running. In actuality, this is powering your power tools as well as running the motor and spinning the whole system. There are other ways to fake this as well. For example, I could make it look like that cable is not there, like this. Now you don't see the cable, and there was no jump cut there, as you just noticed. The only thing that's happened is I've split the screen and recorded some time with that cable unplugged. That's all it takes. Now, I didn't spend very much time working on this, but I can promise you, any one of you can do this with a 5-minute tutorial in Adobe Premiere from a YouTube video. Whenever you see one of those clips where they say, oh, this was all one take and we didn't have any trickery here, all you have to do is watch somebody like Captain Disillusion to learn the unbelievable number of ways that people can manipulate the footage to make it look like something is happening in real time, uncut, when in reality, right now. There's another slightly more challenging, certainly doable way to manipulate this, and that is I can gut one of these and put a smaller motor inside of it, and then I have a belt-driven or direct drive system coupled inside of the motor itself that will spin the fan and blade on the outside. The little motor on the inside can be powered by a battery, and that can make the system spin for several minutes at a time. Remember, they can cut this footage together and try over and over again as many times as they need. So let's say one time they accidentally exposed a wire you wasn't supposed to see. Shoot it again. All you have to do is try and try until you nail it all in one shot, and then you've got it. You release your video, you get millions of views. Now that I've said all that, there are some things that I want to make very clear. Number one, I don't profess to know every possible way to generate energy. There are definitely some things that we haven't discovered yet, but this is not it. This is garbage, and I wish these people would stop doing it. But again, as long as there's a way to make money from it, these people are going to continue to make these videos. In fact, the idea of perpetual motion goes back thousands of years. So we are not by any means the last generation to deal with this problem. This will continue on as long as man is fascinated with ways to get low cost or free energy. Now, there are forms of free energy that we can use today, like solar power. There's wind, which really is another form of solar power if you think about it. I certainly think your time will be well spent figuring out ways to capitalize on things like solar and wind power. But don't waste your time with this garbage. There are a few things that they try to do to give themselves more validity. For example, they hide their face and then cover that up by saying something like, oh, you know, I don't want the government to come after me because it's a government cover-up. Ridiculous claim by any means. It would not take very much for the FBI to figure out who's producing videos on a particular YouTube channel. I don't mean to imply that I don't think that there are government cover-ups. Of course there are. I mean, there is everything from the Watergate scandal to on and on. Certainly there are government cover-ups, but this is not one of them. I'm sorry, I'm laughing so hard because I'm thinking about Mehdi right now. There's one clip in one of his videos where he's talking about free energy where he gets up and just smacks the camera.
There is no energy device.
Yeah, I love that dude. Another thing that they'll say very often is it's not free energy, the energy is coming from the magnets. But as I demonstrated earlier, you can put energy into the system and store it like potential energy, which is the demonstration I showed earlier, a lot like springs, but the spring by itself is not going to do any work. And the permanent magnet by itself is not going to do any work. That is false. Thanks for watching.
What's up, King Sam? Ain't no such thing as free energy.
You know what's smart? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Eat smart with Factor.
Hotels and vacation rentals, Booking.com has something for everyone.
Jesus! You got anything more boutique?
Oui, right this way.
Yeah, we're talking. What about something more family friendly?
Maybe a resort with a water park?
Or somewhere less family friendly?
Yep, one Vegas hotel for the bride-to-be.
For decades, we thought the only way to deliver electrical power to our home or business was to connect to our great American electrical grid. America continues to grow as a nation. People, power demands, expanding cities, but the aging infrastructure is not keeping up. Imagine you can produce the power you need where you consume it. No fossil fuels, no heat, no combustion. Power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A zero-grid solution powered by the Earth Engine.
Rand imagined an engine that transforms our world. Before she wrote Atlas Shrugged, Nikola Tesla imagined a fuel source that would come from Mother Nature. The future is now.
I see Earth Engine in 5 years not just being a replacement for your typical power usage, but literally being a replacement for every single thing that needs some sort of motor to run it.
It's capable of producing power without any pollution, without using any finite resource. It's amazing technology.
I personally, and I say this sincerely, I am honored and blessed to be able to be part of a team, a community of people who all have the same thought, the same desires, the same hopes, the same dreams of accomplishing something that's going to change the world. If everybody continues to work together, as I am sure they will, if we give them the proper resources, the proper guidance, the proper support, this company will absolutely change the world. Because it's not just about the product, it's about what we can do with the product. I really believe that, it started with one guy who had a dream, a thought, and this team of people, this community, if you will, together have now put something together that is changing the world.
The world might change very soon. Stick around and I'll share details about a company that claims they've invented a device that can power our homes and cities without fuel. Free energy has long been the dream of scientists and accept. But what if I told you it's actually becoming a reality? One American startup believes they've really cracked it, and they're preparing to change the world. This is the story of Quantum Energy Corporation and their invention called the Earth Engine. Quantum was founded in 2015 by a group of engineers and physicists frustrated by the slow pace of renewable tech. They resolved to develop a totally new kind of generator that tapped into free energy all around us.